there seems to be something here. I don't know what it is, but at the very least, this deserves to be explored. This deserves to be talked about. And coming from the veteran community that is going through such a severe mental health crisis, with myself and all of us having far too many people that we know we served with take their own lives or are actively taking their lives currently through alcohol, through addiction, through behaviors, that they deserved at least to know that there are other options. My name is Jesse Gould. I was an Army Ranger. I served from 2010 to 2014. Within that time was 3 combat deployments to Afghanistan. Over the course of that, I was a non-commissioned officer in charge, a section leader in the mortar platoon of 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, in charge of 30-plus individuals. Transition is an interesting word because the Army has programs, but there's no program to mentally transition you into the civilian world. And I came from actually the civilian world before the military. So I was in finance. I was working on Wall Street before enlisting. And so when I got out of the military, I thought I was just going to hit the ground running. Had all this confidence, great degree, background. I was a ranger. And for the most part, I did. And I got a great job. Had all the green check marks on what life should be like. But inside, there was this struggle. There was this wall, very hard to describe it, but something wasn't aligning, wasn't fitting together. And so the transition was there for a lot of people in terms of how to write your resume, where to buy a suit, but there's no guidance on how does a person indoctrinated to be a soldier then become a civilian. So I got to this point, I was living on the outside. Everything was going well, had this great job, but on the inside, things were just bad. I got to this point where, fortunately, a lot of red flags internally were coming up. But at the end of the week, I just started doing this self-assessment, and I realized that more days I was unhappy than happy. And that was increasing. That was just getting worse. And I just had all these situations where I just, come home and have a busted up hand because I got too drunk at the bar and fell on the sidewalk, or I was putting myself in these overtly risky situations of just driving my motorcycle far too, just these situations where I was like, what are you doing? I came to that point of, what are you doing? You're not, you still in the mind frame think you're a ranger, but you've let yourself go. You're not in shape. You're not planning situations. You're doing all this these decisions that will end up badly. And that was that point that I knew something had to change, because I knew if I kept on this course, at some point I would make some sort of decision or something would happen to me, or maybe it was a long course where it would be bad for my health or make some sort of bad decision. And I didn't know what I was going to do. Like I said, I sought help, and there was no help. There was no professional guidance outside of what I knew wouldn't work for me. And fortunately, for whatever reason, on a podcast, I think it was a Joe Rogan podcast, heard about ayahuasca. And I came from a situation where never did drugs, never had an interest in drugs, never smoked pot, had no interest or self-identity with psychedelics, never thought I would ever do it. But I heard about this person's experience through a substance called ayahuasca, which is indigenous to South American indigenous cultures and goes back thousands of years. It's a combination of 2 plants brewed into a very thick tea that causes hallucinogenic properties. And at first when I heard it, because of my upbringing, my dare kid upbringing, I was just like, oh, cool. These people are tripping in the woods. That's interesting. Nothing I would do. But for whatever reason, that idea and my own situation of necessity and degradation, I think, kind of stored that information in the back of my head. And so over the course of weeks, when I was still miserable and all that, it just kind of became more of an idea, and I started researching it and seeing it and saw that there was some sort of instance of it helping people, it helping people in similar situations. And so it went from this thing of I would never do that to let me plan a trip and take it to Peru. And I got to that point where I just really had to do this sort of honest evaluation of my life. And I knew the job I was at, I knew the life, whatever I was doing was not working, complete and total. And so I just made that decision of like, okay, well, this is not working. I need to shake this up for the sake of myself, for the sake of my life. And I bought a one-way ticket to Peru and packed up all my belongings and did the best research I could and found a retreat center that offered this ayahuasca in an indigenous setting and went there and pursued that style of ancient therapy. So when I went to Peru, at first the first instinct was I was relieved. Like at the very instant, I knew I made the right decision in terms of leaving that bubble of my life, and it allowed me to reflect on how bad things had actually gotten. I didn't even fully know how bad the path I was on was until I got out of it. And so it was kind of this relief. There's a lot of the anxiety and nervousness of like, I don't know what I'm gonna do now. Like I'm in a different country, but there was the excitement there, and at least it was the novelty. And then going into this ayahuasca retreat, flying into this remote area of Peru, taking a bus, taking a boat down the river, going into this remote location in the Amazon. Just like, are you fucking crazy? Like, who are you? Like, what are you doing right now? But some part of my mind was just like, this is what you have to do, and you're going to do it now. Again, sort of that military instinct. You signed up for this, see it to fruition. And so that's what I did. And so I went into it. So this was a week-long retreat, and over the course of those weeks, there was over the course of that week, there's 4 ceremonies where you ingest the ayahuasca and you go through it. Each experience lasts about 4 or 5 hours where you're in this very intense psychedelic state. And so the first night and the second night were an all-out ass-kicking. It was extremely intense. It beat me up. I had no idea what was going on. It was a very challenging experience, but from that, it actually, showed me that this was not what I expected. This was not just like me tripping in the woods, having this good time, 1970s Woodstock. It was something else. But 2, there was something to it where I didn't really know what it was, but that fact that it was able to kick my ass coming from this like macho ranger status, it earned my respect. It scared the hell out of me, but it also had that sort of dynamic of it. So I pursued it, and then over the course of that, just ended up being a very profound, almost inexplicable experience. But what I can describe about it is that, 1, from my controlling brain and from my control of this situation that I think a lot of us operators have, it taught me through the experience that I can release that. Like I can release that tension. I can release that control over things. Still, control my life and all that kind of stuff, but I don't have to be controlling of the situation at each and every moment. And it also just taught me to sort of like how to pass through the anxiety so I don't just ball it up and keep it inside. After the whole experience, there's just immediate benefit to where it felt like it rebooted my brain. It defragged my brain. For the first time, it felt like even since a child, at that moment, the first time it felt like my brain was working as one cohesive, efficient unit. And then in subsequent months, these benefits continued to where situations that would normally trigger my anxiety, my hypervigilance, like being in a crowded room, just no longer had that. I'd be in the same sort of situation and didn't feel that immediate anxiety. And then other times when this anxiety would start to well up, instead of falling into that negative feedback pattern and falling into that vortex, just getting worse and worse and worse, I was able to pass through it and just almost change the picture, change the pattern. So from my experience, especially in the immediate and seeing all these other amazing stories, it was just the realization of there seems to be something here. I don't know what it is, but at the very least, this deserves to be explored, this deserves to be talked about. And coming from the veteran community that is going through such a severe mental health crisis, with myself and all of us having far too many people that we know we served with take their own lives or are actively taking their lives currently through alcohol, through addiction, through behaviors, that they deserved at least to know that there are other options. Coming from where I come now and understanding the science behind psychedelics and understanding the effectiveness and understanding how much more we have to learn about them, I am in full support of legislation that is happening in Texas, that is happening in Oregon, that is happening in California. And I think it is an absolute disservice to veterans that more politicians are not investigating this. At the very least, from anecdotal evidence, we know what we are doing is not working, and we know that so many veterans are getting life-saving care and treatment through the psychedelic process. There's more to be learned. There's absolutely more infrastructure that needs to be built around it. But for us to just say yes or no, and the no being dooming veterans to another 15 years of ineffective care, is absolutely not the answer.